Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade and Sports Saturday. And for this week, with school getting back in session around the country, one of the staples of the fall is starting up for another year, and it's college football. So what better way to commemorate that than to go back 30 years to 1993 and take a look at a game that was really one of the precursors to college football becoming a viable option for video games. We're going to play Bill Walsh College Football for the Sega Genesis / MegaDrive. Now, this game was created, as you saw, out the chute from EA Sports, along with some help from High Score Productions. It was also released on the Super Nintendo with some help through Visual Concepts. And what we're going to do over the next half an hour is we're just going to play a straight-up exhibition match. And I think what we'll do is we'll put the... Well, we'll definitely have Boston, since that will be my hometown team. Now, this is not an officially NCAA licensed game, so a lot of the schools are not accurately represented. So, like, Pullman is Washington State University, Raleigh is NC State, South Bend is Notre Dame. So let's do it that way. And we'll get the clunky music out of the way. Now, this game was also built predominantly on the Madden engine from the early 90s. So a lot of what you will see in this game is very much indicative of that. So we'll call it in the air. And we won the coin flip, and yeah, we'll receive. Now, if the name Bill Walsh is not a familiar one to you, that's okay. If you know football at all, that name should be something you know pretty well. Because Bill Walsh was the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers from the late 70s through the 1980s. And it was under him that the San Francisco 49ers went from being pretty much a laughingstock in professional football to being one of the biggest teams of the 80s. It dominated the decade. They won 3 Super Bowls in the 80s and then won a 4th one in 1990 after Walsh left and his successor, George Seifert. But really, it was Walsh's guys. And the names Joe Montana, Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott should all be fair. Ooh, I got creamed right there. They are all Hall of Fame players who found their success playing under Walsh. And Walsh's biggest contribution to the sport, without a doubt, was revolutionizing football in terms of offense. Specifically, what became known as the West Coast offense. And I'll explain that as we go here. Ooh, as I got sacked because I was trying to throw it and did not get it to an open guy in time. So we're going to have to punt it. And we are punting it from our own end zone. And we barely got it off. So it'll be a short punt, but a decent punt. Ooh. And it brought it back 20 yards. So now we get to come in on defense, and you only get a certain amount of time to pick your play. And it's not quite as detailed as Madden would go on to be. But you have to bear in mind that 30 years ago, it wasn't really common to have college football games alongside professional football games. Everybody was interested in the NFL because it was and still is the most lucrative sports franchise in the world, if not in the U.S. You could certainly make the argument that FIFA is right up there, and we've seen that in terms of what we've done with those video games. But absolutely in the U.S., the NFL is still the top dog. But college football, for a long time, was actually considered a better sport than professional football. Certainly throughout the early half of the 20th century, and then into the late 60s, 70s, 80s, the NFL really gotten its act cleaned up. Ooh, that was caught for a touchdown. And it's become the monolithic juggernaut we know today. So have them kick the extra point. And now Notre Dame is up 7-0. But prior to getting his start in the NFL as a head coach, I should clarify that Walsh had gone to Stanford University and had produced some winning seasons there. They never won a national championship. They had played in a couple of bowl games. But the point was that Walsh was able to take his offensive system there and build upon it and show somebody in the NFL that he could indeed win with it, at least at the collegiate level, so why not try at the professional level? And the whole idea behind the West Coast offense actually started in, of all places, Cincinnati, Ohio. Because Walsh was an assistant coach for the Cincinnati Bengals NFL team prior to him branching out on his own to be a head coach. And he had learned under arguably the greatest mind that has ever existed in football at all, and his name was Paul Brown. The Cleveland Browns team bears his name because when he created the Browns back in the 40s and 50s, he was able to say, well, it's my team, so you're going to put the name on it. And the powers that be at the time went, okay. You could do that back then. But when he was in Cincinnati, the Bengals had drafted a quarterback. His name was Greg Cook. Big, huge guy, had a big arm. And early in his career, he got hurt. And as a result of that, they had to go with a backup quarterback who could not throw as far or as hard as Cook could. So what Bill Walsh realized is that they had to come up with a scheme to help their backup quarterback. His name was Quincy Carter. And, or excuse me, not Quincy Carter, it was Dale Carter. Quincy Carter came later. But anyway, it was all about taking advantage of the fact that the quarterback couldn't throw as far, and if they didn't have a great running back, if we get 25 yards in the first down on that pickup, then you use the passing game to go short and intermediate. So you're talking between like 5 and 20 yards, and you use that to move downfield as opposed to just going down the field for 80 yards and hoping for a long bomb touchdown, which was the predominant thought at the time for a lot of NFL teams like the Oakland Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's when you got in a bind, just throw it deep and hopefully you've got a receiver who's fast enough they can catch it. And we're going to score a touchdown, and we've got this game down to a point after. So now we're all scored 7. And I think we're like halfway through the second quarter, which is good because one of the things I liked about the early Madden games was that they weren't so bogged down with minutia that you could play a game in about a half an hour. So we got 4:51 to go here in the second. So actually the second quarter is just underway. Oh, I should have had that guy way in the backfield. My defensive lineman went right through the hole and then didn't hit anybody. That's annoying. That is one of the difficulties about this game. It was something that always bothered me, was how you use A to tackle.
Incomplete.
But if you can't get to your guy, then the odds are not great of being able to get back up and make a play. Use B to change players. And if you can time it right, you can use the C button to give yourself a little bit of a jump. So they ran it and picked up a first down. That running back could take a pounding. I think I hit him like 4 times with 4 different guys. Now, there's a really good documentary about Bill Walsh that came out a couple of years ago that the NFL did as part of their Football Life series. And I really enjoyed it because I learned a lot about him and how he was actually a really hard guy to know, and he wasn't as... He wasn't as sure that he was going to succeed as a head coach as most people tend to think people in that position can. He was very insecure. He was very quick to second guess, and he was very quick to overthink it. Which, if you're in a high stress situation in a job like that, where everything comes down to what you decide to do on or off a field, that could have huge ramifications on your team, not just for a game, but for an entire season. Nice throw and catch. You know, it can build up a lot of things mentally that can have an impact on your health and your well-being. And there were a lot of times that Walsh thought about quitting, that he couldn't handle it. Even as his team was getting good enough that they were challenging for Super Bowls. And the Niners won their first Super Bowl in 1981. They beat Dan Marino in their only Super Bowl for the Dolphins that he was in 1984. They won in what was easily one of the best Super Bowls of the 80s, beating the Bengals again in 1988. And then they went ahead and just destroyed the Denver Broncos the following year. And that's still the biggest blowout in Super Bowl history, 55-10. And at that point, like I said, Walsh had stepped down as the head coach, but he was there at the game, and there was a great clip in that documentary where the owner of the 49ers is there in the press box with Walsh, and Walsh, about 5 minutes in, said, "This game's over." And the owner looks at him and goes, "How the heck do you know that?" And he goes, I know. I'm looking at everybody, and they're running so well, there's no way that anybody can stop them. Now, this game, when it came out, actually got pretty good reviews. Computer Gaming World stated the Genesis version especially provides the best sports action yet to be seen in a cartridge product. And this game would end up being ported not just from the Genesis and the Super NES, but it would go to the Sega CD. And then they would release another version of it in 95. But that was as far as they got. At that point, EA or Walsh, I don't know the particulars because I couldn't find it in my research, but for whatever reason, the decision was made not to continue the series. Oh, we got a touchdown here. Kick it to the outside, and we're in. Well, that couldn't have come at a better time.
It's good.
And we just got it through the uprights. But we're all squared 14. And while I don't have a Metacritic score for this, Allgame, when they reviewed it, they gave both the Super NES and the Genesis version 3 out of 5. And that was the best overall ranking I could find. When Bleacher Report did their top 50 sports video games of all time, this didn't make the list. Whereas the game we reviewed last week, Jordan vs. Bird 1-on-1, was 24th, if I remember it right. And in some ways, I think that's a shame, because this showed that you could make games that were not so dependent on the NFL licenses, which were and still are very expensive.
Incomplete.
And yes, this does not have the official NCAA licenses, which came later, although that only ran until 2014. And now with the name, image, and likeness deals that have been made and the conglomeration of the sport, the question is going to be now, if EA or another developer can create a college football game, what's it going to look like? What will be in it? And are people going to want to buy it? Because this was still at a time where EA could really do no wrong.
First down.
Where every year, pretty much every Madden game that came out sold in the millions. And even coming up with ones that you might think are derivative versions, because again, they're using the same engine, which is something they do nowadays to various degrees. Oh, and he caught for another touchdown with 30 seconds to go in the half. So this is going to be a high-scoring affair where neither defense can stop the offense, apparently.
It's good.
And we have 30 seconds to get in the end zone before halftime. And Notre Dame will get the ball to start the second half, because we received to open the game. So if we want to keep tight, we got to score here. So we'll use that little bit of West Coast offense style and just go down the field.
First down.
Pick up 15 yards. We'll pick up another chunky yards on that play. So now we're down to the 30. But we have 15 seconds to go. Touchdown! How about that? This game definitely seems a lot more forgiving than Madden was at this time.
It's good.
Because there was no way in Madden that I'd be able to drive down the field that easily. And I have this, as far as I know, on normal difficulty. I didn't, you saw how I set it up. I didn't adjust anything. So we'll get to the end of the half. They're going to take a timeout with 1 second to go, which means they're going to try and go for a home run ball here. I tried to pick it off, but couldn't get to it. So we're all square at the half. And then want to give you the update on other stuff, which I'm not going to worry about. And we'll get the second half underway. Now, one thing that has always struck me about this version of EA football games is that it does remind me a lot of when I was a really, really small kid and we had what was called electronic football, which is before you had video game consoles that had football games on them. You had an actual board game, for lack of a better term, but it was played on a metal plate that was shaped to look like a football field, and all your players had magnets on them. You'd set them up to run a particular play, and then you'd hit a button and turn on the table, and the table would vibrate, and as it vibrated, all the players would move in different directions. It was the craziest thing. But back in the 70s, that was what... If you were a kid and you couldn't go outside with your buddies and play actual football in the backyard or something, that was the option you had. Or you would have to play a game like one that's called Stratomatic Football, which was like uber football for nerds. And I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean that it was extremely complex. It was really hard to learn. My brother learned how to play it because he was a big sports nerd. But it was like a role-playing game version of football. That's the only way I can describe it. Oh my God, he tipped it, caught it, touchdown. So I went to go pick it off. I tipped it, and the guy was right there, and he caught it and walked into the end zone. How about that? You do that 9, 10 times in a row, and I bet I probably couldn't do that at least 8 of them.
It's good.
So again, the defense cannot stop the offense. Alright, so now we're going to have to put some stuff together here. And we're close to a first down. Being able to control the players is not necessarily as easy as I'm maybe making it look.
Incomplete.
All right, now we need a yard. And I think we got it. Yep, picked up 5.
First down.
Now, college football at this time was still very much a ground and pound, 3 yards in a cloud of dust sort of game. But out on the West Coast, where there was still a conference called the Pac-10 at the time. It then went on to be the Pac-12, and now it is, I believe, the Pac-4. They ran a more open, pass-happy sort of game. And it drove the other conferences and the establishment nuts in much the same way that Walsh did. The fact that Walsh had the presence of mind to come up with a way of running the game that wasn't the ground and pound, it wasn't just going over the top every 2 or 3 plays for... Is it be a first down? Barely.
First down.
Really ticked off a lot of other coaches and a lot of other football minds back in the 80s. They thought it was soft. They thought it was finesse and limp-wristed. Like all sorts of things that you could apply to diminish what he was doing. People did it as much as they could. And now we're all even at 28. Now we'll see if we can actually stop them on a drive, which would be nice. Having a tip catch would not be something I want to have happen again. So let's see if we can do something to negate that. Now, one thing that is, along with the licensing, that is noticeably absent from this game is you don't have things like rankings, which are common in college football. They're having the polls and knowing what team is ranked where is part of the major appeal of the sport. It's that knowing your school is in the top 25 and that they are in a position where they can either play in a big-time bowl game or play for a national championship. And back in the 90s, how the teams were ranked in the polls decided who was going to play. Oh my God, he caught it. For a national championship. Or they're going to play in a big-time bowl game. Now they finally have a playoff system in place. And I believe they're expanding it, if not next year, the year after, from 4 teams to 12 teams. In college football forever, the NCAA and the schools and everybody fought that tooth and nail for decades, saying we can't have that because we have to, and they came up with excuses of it was going to ruin the traditional games and it was going to make life more difficult for the players, and really what it all came down to, and it's no different than in any other sport, was money. It meant that the people who were making money under the old system weren't going to make that much money anymore. And new people were going to make money, and they didn't want that. And, of course, the people who were ultimately not going to make any money were the kids that were going out on the field playing the game. Because it was all built under the idea of amateurism, which is a lie. There's no real other way to describe it. But now that system has been completely upended across the board. And now the NCAA, which had been the governing body for collegiate athletics forever, pretty much has no power anymore. So it'll be very interesting to see over the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 years, what collegiate athletics is going to look like. Because it's going to look a lot different. Ooh, and he just got that over the crossbar. So we held him to a field goal. And now that we're in the 4th quarter, this is good for us. Because now we just need to get downfield and score one touchdown. And as long as Notre Dame doesn't score again, we should be able to get out of here with a win. Because the last thing I want is to have this go to overtime, now that we're already over a half an hour. Oh, I got stuck behind the line. Not what I wanted. I also like that even though they don't have it really well laid out in terms of what group of plays manage, kind of what your strategy is like they do in Madden. I like that there aren't a million plays in this game. It is very easy to overcomplicate them and make it really, really hard to figure out what you want to run from one play to the next.
Incomplete.
Okay, well now it's gotten to the point where we are not having the ability to complete passes, which is not good. Now we're going to have to go for it on fourth down if we want to be able to keep this drive going. Oh, are you kidding? It was right to him. How did he not catch it? So, well, we took the gamble and we turned the ball over. So now Notre Dame still has the lead. And if they score here, they're going to pretty much put it away. And now they just want to run the clock down. And we've got about 3 minutes to go. They move forward, pick up 6, so it'll be 3rd and short. Now, one other thing about this game is that the AI wasn't quite as up to snuff as later iterations of the games. Oh, we pick up the fumble. Awesome. I was not expecting that, but I'm not going to argue. So now we still got a chance. They were going for the home run ball on that one. He just didn't catch it. And we busted downfield, pick up 31 yards. Boy, we needed that. But now the problem is we've got to be able to just control the clock a little bit. Because we can't give Notre Dame too much time to potentially go down and score. We pick up another first down.
First down.
Now, there is no 2-minute warning in this game. So as long as we don't let the clock on the left run down to 0, which is the play clock, that would give us a penalty.
Incomplete.
All right, so it's 2nd and 10, so it's not a huge deal. Although now we got a loss of 3. And he makes the catch at the 5.
First down.
So now we just got to get in the end zone, but now we can just let the clock run. Take as much time off this clock as we can go. And then, are they going to call a timeout? No. So we'll let it keep on running. And luckily, they don't give you a ton of time on the play clock once you call the play and get back to the line. But we're in for the touchdown. Kick the point after, and it's good. It's a 4-point game. So a field goal will not win it for Notre Dame. They got 42 seconds to get all the way down the field. And considering I went down the field in 30 seconds at the end of the first half, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And they'll go for the touchback here, so they'll start at the 20. Oh, they're going to run it. Okay. They call the timeout with 30 seconds to go. Tip. Don't grab it. Let's just say don't you dare. If that happened again, you would have heard a grown man scream into the microphone. Tipped and incomplete. So now it's 3rd and 10. Caught it, but it's only 8 yards, and the clock is still running. So they need 2 yards for the first down, and they need 61 yards for a touchdown. And he got it for the first down, so they'll call the timeout, but I think that's their last one. Yes, that is their last one. So they're going to have 1, maybe 2 plays to be able to do something here. And they're not going to get it. Or that will stop the clock. Shoot. So they got 5. Oh, nope. The clock's running. So that'll do it. 2-1-0. And that is the end of the game. Well, it was a high-scoring affair for sure. But we notch another win in this series and get the victory over the dreaded Notre Dame Fighting Irish 35-31. And that, everybody, is Bill Walsh College Football for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis from 1993. Question becomes, is this a good game? I would say yes, it is. For the time, for what you got out of it. Again, understanding this is a 16-bit game, so it doesn't have nearly the capabilities that the 32-bit games and so on from there would have. This was pretty much the best of what we got. Is it a game you could make today? I would like to think so, but it's also one that because of the politics involved and everything that would go into it, you probably couldn't. It wouldn't be a game that you could get away with simply because the NCAA would not allow the schools to be able to put them in there, and there is like legal reasons why you can't. So, that's why for the last 10 years we haven't had a college football game. But this was really the start of it in the 90s for the modern video game generation that gave us the ability to have a game that if you didn't want to play pro football, you had an alternative. And that they were able to get a big name like Bill Walsh. They wouldn't be able to do that now either because sadly, unfortunately, Bill Walsh passed away in 2007. due to cancer at the age of 75. But is it a game you should try out? If you're into it, if you want to give it a whirl, it's not hard to find. Again, I'm playing on the Fusion 3.64 emulator, so, give it a try and let me know. But if you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have, best way to show it, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. Remember to vote on our poll question on the community page. Do you want to see me, Ronan, a 40-something-year-old gamer who has never dove into the Soulsborne universe, finally do so and take a crack at Dark Souls Remastered? We're thinking about doing this as a way to commemorate hitting 200 episodes on this channel, which is rapidly approaching. This is now video 192 that we have posted since we started shop back a couple years ago. So, cast the vote, yes or no. It's on the community page, and we will take that feedback into account when deciding what we're going to do next. Also, remember, we have Sucker Punch Sunday coming up tomorrow, where we play a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation. And we will have another episode of WTF Wednesday this week, as well as another one-day playthrough. Hope you enjoyed the last one we did for Super Mario Bros. 2. And then we'll see what we do from there. So, as always, my name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Sports Saturday with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming, and we'll see you again tomorrow for Sucker Punch Sunday. Bye.